I'm very honored to be taking part in such an interesting discussion here, and I've really enjoyed listening to all the prior speakers, and I think we agree on many of the issues, although we come from different angles of why we are doing and thinking what we are. I will talk a little about the lower level education, primary and elementary schools, because I really believe that children and youth can be destroyed at a very early stage if they're not given the right inspiration more than education, I think. So I think it's important to understand how the present education destroys the skills needed to gain and develop the skills we need for the future. And as we know, all of us, the educational system for a lower level education was based on what kind of people the university needed to teach them the academics. And as has been said earlier in this webinar, it's repetition of facts, and facts as defined by a few. It's lack of contextuality, disintegrated learning, combined with a fairly random choice of what kind of subjects to learn from. Limited complexity, learning for the few and the privileged, individual learning, punishment and fear, and measurement and evaluation of what is easiest to evaluate and measure, not what is important to learn. So this is sort of the basis for what schools are built on today. And as we all have talked about earlier in this webinar, the most important thing I think that children need to learn now is empathy. Empathy not only because they need to understand the society they live in, but also to be able to work in teams. And we've talked about, it's been said so many times already, that collaborative learning is the important part of learning, as this is the way we're going to work in the future. Creative thinking is totally destroyed because you're not allowed to do your own thinking. The lack of values is obvious. The contextual learning is absolutely not there, and the critical and analytical skills are not developed and encouraged. So because I felt that school was like this when I went to school myself, I decided that if I ever had kids, I would start a school myself, and I did that about 30 years ago, and based the school on 5 pillars. And this is a school based on from 3 to 16 years. Knowledge, curiosity, integrity and respect, responsibility and safety, aesthetics and atmosphere, joy and friendship. And these pillars are sort of the basis for what we are doing. And it's interesting, Danica said they had hired a musician at their school. The first 2 persons we hired was a painter and a musician. And I had to admit to them, I don't know exactly how we're going to utilize you, but we have to have you there. And that has been a major success. And the musician is the person who has been the longest working. He started with us as we opened the school, and he's still with us. And he has had an enormous effect on the learning of the children. And what we also do there is we have sort of the history of the Earth, of the planet, and of our universe, of the whole universe, as a basis for how the children learn. So it's the basis for being the citizen in today's life. We learn from the Big Bang and up till today, and literally use that as a basis for everything they do. So when they learn about the Greek philosophers, it's the same time they learn the mathematical principles. When they learn about Egypt, they learn their knowledge, etc. And this has helped. We see that in now that the oldest children who went to this school are now 27, 28, and I can see how their knowledge is based on a totally different way of thinking than what I see in other children. they have a way of seeing a more holistic picture, and it's quite impressive to see how they contextualize everything they learn. We also focus very much on our role as human beings in the nature, and explain it in everyday action. What is the impact of what we're doing, both on the nature as such, but also on our fellow human beings. Aesthetics is a very important part, as the glue in life. We have it in everything we do. It's based on aesthetics also. And of course, ethics as the compass of life. The first 2 weeks of every school year, we focus on the ethics. How do we behave towards each other? How do we learn? How do we think, etc.? Before we even start with the curriculum, we have 2 weeks of only thinking about how do we behave towards each other. And this seems to be an effective, of course, we are a small school, so we couldn't use statistics from this, but we can see that on an anecdotal level, it's really working. It's really working very well. And I just have one comment on Hazel Henderson's comment on the GDP as measurement of where a country is, and she says that learning has zero value. It's only the cost of learning that's measured. It's interesting to see that Simon Kuznets, who was the one who developed the GDP, or the gross domestic product, he warned against using it as a measure of the welfare of a nation. And I'm sure you all know about this, but just to make sure it's in case you don't, Michael Porter and Michael Green have just developed 2 years ago, started on something they call Social Progress Index, which is measuring the outcome of a country's production. And the outcome being educational level, happiness, health level, etc. of a nation. It's a very interesting program where they look at what is actually the development of the country. That has not so much to do with education or with today's theme, but I just wanted to mention it. So, and I think that what we need to very, very quickly break down from the sort of the origin of education is this very tight sectorizing of both the subjects, but also the school as opposed to the rest of society. The school and the universities are, in many, many cases, totally distracted from the rest of society. And this way, it will not follow. It will be an enemy of society, because the children and the students don't see the link between what they do in their learning process and the real world and the challenges of the real world. So this is what I think of what I am preparing a talk on the origin of education, and I told Mila this yesterday, so she invited me to sort of give some comments. My speech has not been prepared yet, but these are some of the issues that I want to focus on, and I would love to have comments from the distinctive speakers of this webinar. Thank you.